What's up, Jeremiahans? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be talking about the Yamaha PSR E463. If you're thinking about buying this keyboard, or if you already have this keyboard, you really want to stay for the rest of this whole video because I'll be telling you about 10 features that Yamaha should have included in this keyboard. However, it is missing, and that is what's preventing this good keyboard from being a great keyboard. After all, this is the top of the line of the Yamaha PSR E Series, and we would expect nothing less but these very common but very useful features to be found in this keyboard. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you will get the latest updates whenever I put up a brand new video. So let's get started. The very first thing you want to note about this keyboard is that the entire screen is so extremely reflective that whenever there is sunlight, or if you're out doing a performance, or if you put it in the corner of the room where it is just under a light source, it is extremely difficult to look at the screen because it will just be washed out. I have no idea why Yamaha put this extremely massive piece of plastic over this tiny screen, which makes this whole portion here looks just like a mirror. You can see in most of my videos, you can actually see the reflection of my phone and my hands and my face on this massive piece of plastic. Not only is it extremely reflective, it is also very prone to scratches. So you find that even while cleaning it, if you're not careful enough, you will just be full of scratches within a matter of weeks. This is something which I believe that Yamaha should have changed, but they haven't. Even though the E Series has been around for more than 6 to 8 years, but this feature, or I say this thing that is bad about this series of keyboard, which is this plastic, should be removed. The second feature which I don't like is that there is no way to tell which registration memory you're on. Are you on the patch number 1, 2, 3 or 4? There's no way to tell either on the panel itself. There's no lights here to tell you which number you're using. Neither is it indicated on the screen itself. So if you have a look here, I can press bank and it'll say bank 1. But when I select 2, it says 2 here, and very quickly it disappears. And there's no other way of knowing on the screen while you're playing which registration number you're on, which is really irritating, right? Because let's say you are on registration number 2 and you want to go to 3 or go to 4, you have no idea which number you're at, and it doesn't help you when you're trying to orientate yourself as to which part of the song you are at. This is something which Yamaha can very easily rectify by having a little corner of the screen just showing which registration button we're using, whether am I using 1, 2, 3 or 4. It doesn't cost anything. It's just a matter of reprogramming the LCD or the LEDs to show that indication. It can be just one tiny corner there. Just tell me which registration button I'm using. And this is the critical flaw that has been around for the longest time in the E Series. There's no way to tell which registration number you're using. The third thing that is missing from the E463, which should really be included on a keyboard of this level, especially more so since now the emphasis is on the groove creator. There's so much emphasis on the groove creator, and we know that a lot of the groove creator patterns will be played with the synth lead sounds. So what is missing to support this groove creator feature and the synthesizer lead is that there must be included a modulation wheel, and that is missing from this keyboard. Surprising for a keyboard of this level, right? We would think like the top of the line of the E Series keyboard would have a modulation wheel, or at least some kind of button to trigger on and off modulation. Yamaha could have very easily rectified this problem of cost saving just by removing this pitch bend and changing it with a joystick that goes X and Y on the X and Y axis, and you can, with the same joystick, control both pitch bend and modulation by moving left or right. They could also, of course, just modify this wheel such that this wheel is not only able to sense up and down, but if you just tilt it left or right, it can actually trigger the modulation. This is a very small modification which Yamaha could have done, which would not add very much to the cost, and then some simple programming internally, and you will get modulation. But that is missing, and which is a really sad thing, because we've got some really great groove creator DJ patterns in here, some fantastic synthesizer lead sounds, but to control those sounds, to make it really good, we need modulation, and that is unfortunately missing. And so the fourth thing which is critically missing from the E463, and has been missing for a few of the model updates, even the previous E series has this function really missing. If you look at this knob assign button, these knobs are assigned to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. When you press the buttons, it will scroll through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sequentially, right? So if, for example, I am at number 3, function number 3, and I want to go to function number 1, I have to keep pressing it 4, 5, 6, and before coming to 1 again. And there's no quick way to move up and down these functions. They could have simply made this into a plus and minus button, and we can move up or down the different functions very quickly. Because very often when I'm using this function, I realize that I might just press a bit too quickly. For example, if I want function number 5 and I press twice and I skipped it, oh no, it's gone to number 1 and I have to go through the entire cycle again to reach number 5. And that really affects live playing if you're trying to do all the different effects and the live control with the knobs. The fifth thing that Yamaha could have very easily done is to make sure that they printed the names of the port that is behind on this panel. With the new USB ports and with USB audio, very frequently we have to plug in a thumb drive, plug in a USB cable to connect to the computer. And there's no way to tell unless you push out the entire keyboard and go right behind the keyboard in order to know where to plug it in. So you would have no idea where each of the jacks are. If you're trying to plug in a headphone, you have no idea where the headphone jack is, right? If they had written just the words of the jack, they have labeled the jacks, it will be really easy to just plug in the appropriate cables. And it can be found on the S series keyboard. What they've done is that they've made the headphone jack on this side here such that you can plug it in and plug it out very easily, but it is not happening on the E series keyboard. And I felt that design wise this should have been adopted rather than having the headphone jack behind and then you have to blindly go feel for where the jack is and just plug it in. Something which I use on a regular daily basis, and I find that this is really critical and Yamaha should have included it, especially for a keyboard that is top of the line of the E series. The sixth thing which I believe is missing from a keyboard of this level is that there is only one fixed intro button for style playing. So if I want an intro, there's only one option, which is massively long. There's no way to have a much shorter intro. Very often all we need is just a 4-count intro because we might just want to play our own intro, and that is just missing. The seventh thing which is missing from this keyboard, and that should be included, is the ending. There is no way of getting a short ending. Very often we don't want a lengthy 4 bars or 8 bars ending to a song. We may just want to play our own ending and have it finish off with a very short and polished 4-bar ending. On the S series keyboard, even on the entry-level S series keyboard, you actually get 3 intros and 3 endings, and intro 1 as well as ending 1 are actually just 1 bar, 4 beats or 3 beats, ending or intro. And that is actually the buttons I use most often. But for the E series E463, we only have one choice, which is the intro and ending, and we have to live through the entire long intro or entire long ending before we can start our song or finish our song. And the 8th item which is missing, and it's really just a matter of programming on Yamaha's side, there is no physical features that needs to be adopted, is that the registration memory button, it doesn't memorize the autofill. So what happens is this, okay, like for example, I were to memorize main A into bank 1, okay? And then I want to change the sounds for a second part of the song, and I want to go to a main B, right? Main B here. But before a main B plays, I want it to do a drum roll so that the switch to main B is not so abrupt, right? So I save this into registration memory 2. Let's have a look. So that's registration memory 1, which is playing main A. When I press 2, you see it goes straight to main B. It doesn't do a fill before it goes to main B. In order to get a fill in before it goes to main B, right, what we have to do is to do this, right? So this is main A. In order to get the fill that we want, we have to add an additional step, which is to press this and then very quickly go to this, which is a ridiculously extra step, absolutely not needed. So for the S series, what we can do is that whenever you switch to a different variation, when you switch to the variation of the same beat, you have the choice of saving either to go into the main beat immediately or to have a autofill in play before going into the variation. And that is missing on this keyboard. And this keyboard is really a good keyboard, but things like this, small tiny things like this, which really is just an internal programming issue, can make this good keyboard into a really great keyboard. The ninth thing I would really like on this keyboard is to have the octave plus or minus on this keyboard. As we all know, this keyboard is 61 keys, right? And if we are trying to play it like a piano, which is a pretty decent piano considering that there is a portable grand piano button here, and there's a very decent grand piano sample in this keyboard. Very often we want to play notes below the C here, and we want to hit the high registers above the final note here. And when we're doing live and we run out of keys and we want to go higher, there's no way to very quickly just press an octave plus or minus button. So this is a critical feature which I believe Yamaha should just have 2 buttons here so that we can very quickly go to a higher octave or switch now to a lower octave. But right now, imagine if you're performing live or if you're in the middle of the song, you have to go to function and you have to scroll through massive number of, functions until you get to M octave and then you get to go up 1 octave. And even then, what if you had 2 sounds? You have layered the sounds with main sound and dual sound, and you want both sounds to go up an octave at the same time. You cannot do so because pressing here will only change the octave of the main voice, and if you want to change the octave of the dual voice, you have to keep going up until you get the dual voice octave. And how are you supposed to change 2 functions at the same time? Whereas if you had a plus minus button here, octave plus minus button, it would change immediately both layers to an octave higher or an octave lower. This is something which can be implemented very easily, and it doesn't cost very much to reprogram this additional function on the keyboard, but that is missing. The last and final item which I would really like Yamaha to have. For those who have played the S series keyboard, you will realize there is one very useful button called the freeze button, F-R-E-E-Z-E, the freeze button. It is a great tool for those who are practicing and for students who are learning. So for example, the full speed of a song that you're learning, the full tempo of a song you're learning is 120 tempos per minute, right? But while you're practicing and while you're learning the song, there's no way you can always be playing at 120 beats per minute. You might want to practice at 70 beats per minute. So you would have memorized like all the settings, 1, 2, 3, 4 with 120 beats per minute because that is the final tempo you want, right? However, if you're practicing at 70 beats per minute, let me give you an example. Okay, here we have memorized 110 beats per minute, okay? And number 2, registration number 2, is also 110 beats per minute. So if I'm practicing and I want to move the tempo down to, let's say, 60 beats per minute, and I'm practicing my song, right? And I'm moving to the sound number 2 in the middle of the song. If I press 2, it would just jump straight back up to 110. That is not going to be helpful to me because I will be practicing the entire song at 60 beats per minute. Whereas with the freeze button on, if I set this at 60 beats per minute, and if I press number 2 with the freeze button on, the tempo will continue to be at 60 beats per minute. This is a very critical function for students of mine, which I find is really, really useful. And that is what's preventing me from really recommending this to my students. This function was also not available for quite some time on the S series, lowest end of the S series model. The S500, S550 didn't have that function, but Yamaha has included that function now in the S670. And right now, I actually recommend my student the PSR S670, and I believe that the PSR S670 is actually one of the best value for money in terms of the functions for keyboard that's really useful, because it has those things, many things which are missing in this list that I've just gone through. It is actually available in the lowest end of the PSR S series. I wish the Yamaha would bring these features down to the E series, to this highest end of this E series, because it's really useful and I use it on a daily basis with my students and with my performing. Let's see if the next model of the Yamaha E463, if Yamaha will be listening. I'm sure Yamaha would be watching YouTube videos and might come across this video, and hopefully these features get implemented and you guys out there will enjoy the additional features. Until the next time, please make sure you subscribe so that you get more videos on the PSR keyboard, on my piano playing, as well as food reviews whenever I come across some new or interesting food. Till the next time, bye-bye.